Oh, I didn't notice you there. How are you, children? Welcome back to another installment of the Geek Week podcast. Today's theme, the unexpected. Much like the Aquaman was shitty as fuck. How unexpected. What I have in store for you today, kids, reviews. And much like the Aquaman, they are unexpectedly shitty. Or expectingly shitty. We'll leave that up to you, really. But, yeah. God, fuck. I don't even know where to begin with the four of these. I think the way I'm going to do it today, we'll go chronologically from least worst to tolerable. Can't say from bad to good because even the last of them isn't good. But although it's not great, I do still enjoy it. And I'll just tell you now, we're going to start off with a little bit of a throwback I didn't get to do a review on yet. Doctor Strange 2, which, yeah. After that, Morbius, and I'll explain. But yeah, not great either. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. After that, we'll probably go on to Obi-Wan, which is, if it wasn't for the other two being Abomination, it probably wouldn't even be that far on the list, but we'll get into it. Then after that, finally, we'll finish with The Boys, which I do enjoy, but it does have its flaws. So, without further ado, let us begin. Doctor Strange 2 in the multiverse of fuckness. Oh boy, here we go. So basically the movie starts out with an alternate version of Doctor Strange running with what comes to be the MacGuffin of the movie, America Chavez, a girl with the power to travel through dimensions. So they're running from, let's call it, Demigorgon, and the Demigorgon is chasing them through this alternate universe. And I guess the purpose of the Demigorgon chasing them is to extract America Chavez's power to travel through the dimensions. At least that's all we can tell from this point. And Doctor Strange makes a decision because she can't use the powers, I guess, to defend them, that if she can't control them, he can, and that's the best chance of the world surviving, if the world was even at stake in that situation. But I digress. But instead of him thinking of something else, he kills America, attempts to kill America Chavez by taking her power, but then gets killed by the Demigorgon that he wasn't paying attention to for some reason. Yeah, and then after that, Demigorgon attacks America Chavez. She opens up a portal to, I think it's Earth 6. I want to say 616, but that could be Rick and Morty. I'm not entirely sure. But our universe, the one with all our Marvel movies and heroes, and that's when the movie begins. And I should say it begins actually truly after the Doctor Strange that we know from Doctor Strange 1, the previous, then wakes up from a dream. So this all that we just saw was a dream sequence. And I'll just explain this now because it makes absolutely fuck all sense. I mean, so basically our dreams are us in alternate universes, which I guess conceptually isn't, the worst idea ever, but this is something you definitely would have had to have planned, I think, before just now. Because, what about everything else that people have dreamed about in the past 20 fucking movies? Are those all just canon now? God, I just, sometimes. Well, anyways, so Doctor Strange, after waking up, thinking he just had a nightmare, goes to the wedding of Rachel McAdams, who was his love interest in the first movie. And the reason I'm even bringing this point up is because one of the things that's just terribly wrong in this movie is the theme, because there is none, or there is too many, depending on how you want to look at it. It just doesn't really follow any of its themes that it sets up through. So it's disappointing to say the least. But he goes to go to this girl's wedding, and she's getting married to somebody else because obviously he's Doctor Strange, and you know the whole superhero gag unless you're like Spider-Man or whatever. But yeah, so I guess the whole thing there was because there's a scene where he talks about how he wishes things were different. I think they're trying to set up like a him coming into himself sort of thing, this is the path I chose sort of theme, I guess, but doesn't really work. But then some monster attacks, and lo and behold, America Chavez is running from another Demigorgon, and Doctor Strange leaves the wedding, saves her, and thus they meet. And he finds out about her ability to open up portals to other dimensions. She's the only one that can do so. There's a lot of other stupid shit that comes with that. Because if she's the only person that can do so, I think they specifically say in the movie at one point, she's done it like, 700 some odd times or something that's like 700 different dimensions. And she still doesn't understand the customs. I think the first thing she says to Doctor Strange is, hey, never accept that you don't know anything when you're traveling dimensions because everything could be different. Then she goes on to assume that food is free, steals fucking food, and then gets accosted for it. It's fucking retarded. Oh, I mean, stupid. I gotta watch my language. But, yeah, it wasn't good. But then, for some reason, after he figures out about her power and that she's being chased by monsters, his bright fucking idea is to go to Wanda Maximoff for help. Now, this needs to be addressed, I think, just first and foremost, just where they've been going with Wanda's character. She is a villain. Like, I don't know if, like, I feels like even at the end of WandaVision, the writers were a bit confused on that. Like, I think there was, like, that weird scene where that one black agent that's, like, the one person's daughter was like, oh, they'll never know what you sacrificed. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? She enslaved a fucking town of people that will probably never be the same again. All for children that don't exist, that she could probably make more of. Very strange. But she's definitely a villain, so I don't know why you would go to her for help in the first place, which is another thing that should be addressed. Because, all right, so here are the two, if you didn't catch this already, the two major flaws of this movie. Theme being the first that we'll keep going through, and characters, which we'll also keep going through, but the characters of this movie are just terrible. And some of them are just carrying over from other terrible things, like I just mentioned about Wanda. But if you haven't noticed, with Doctor Strange, he's become this plot device where they make him absolutely fucking stupid to move the plot forward. Like, No Way Home doesn't exist if Doctor Strange isn't actually a fucking idiot. Like, it's crazy. Like, he has a catastrophic spell that could literally fracture the world as we know it and doesn't explain fuck all of it to Peter before they go down, and he just sits up there and starts voodooing up a fucking spell. Then, mind you, Peter throws in a name, fucks up the spell, and he's like, wow, that could be catastrophic, then continues to keep doing it. I mean, this guy's a fucking doctor with a fucking PhD. He's not stupid. Like, they're continuously they're just making him an idiot to push the plot forward. Like, this is not something he would do. Why would he go to a villain of all the people he could go to? It's ridiculous. But, lo and behold, he talks to Wanda about helping her, and he never mentioned this, which is honestly probably one of the funniest scenes in the movie, when he's like, Wanda's like, oh, you should bring America here, and it's just like dead silence, and she's like, oh, you didn't tell me your name, did you? And he's like, no, I did not. Then we get the, cut to Wanda's evil, even though she's fucking been evil. But, yeah, if you didn't believe she was evil then, I mean, then they have the scene of her going to, like, the one, Kamatage, or wherever it's called, the place for the wizards. But, she, like, murders half of them just to get to this girl's power to travel dimensions. Mind you, right now, all we know her motivation is to get her kid, go to another dimension where her kids exist that aren't real. I mean, in no dimension are they real. So, like, couldn't she just make more? I'm so confused by that. Like, Vision is not capable of having kids, I don't think. So they're all made up children. It's just, But yeah, she's completely down the shitter. She goes buck wild, kills a ton of people. And then then you start to see Sam Raimi's influence, the, conflict of two directors, because it becomes a different movie at this point, almost like a horror film, sort of House of the Dead sort of thing, which was a cool aesthetic. I won't knock, but definitely a huge contrast from where the movie began, and continues. The contrast doesn't stop there; it continues throughout the movie, and that just never good. But after she attacks him, the MacGuffin, which is what I should call her, America Chef. And you know what? I didn't even speak about this. If we could just talk about, there wasn't too many issues I had acting wise in this movie because Benedict Cumberbatch, as far as them butchering his character, he still acts out Doctor Strange, I think, tremendously well. But and then Elizabeth Olsen, I think, was a standout. I think she was fantastic throughout the movie. Although writing is nothing to do with them, so I'll give the actors their due. The girl who played America Chavez was just fucking awful, just goddamn terrible. It was just hard to watch. And you got to figure she's so young. It's probably the most important role of her life. I mean, you could fucking at least look excited to be there. Like, oh my gosh. I mean, I've seen more enthusiasm out of like paint drying. I mean, the shit was sad to see, really. And she's supposed to be like the main centerpiece in the film. And I wonder if that's when like Sam Raimi came in and was just like, you know what? Yeah, no, we can't do it with her. And that's why the movie because she's not really in the movie as much as her character would infer she would be, if that makes sense. But I digress. So while they're getting attacked by Wanda at Kumatage, I know I'm saying that wrong, so feel free to put in the comments what the right pronunciation is, whatever. But then America Chavez opens up another portal through a dimension, and they go there and saves them just in the nick of time. And then Wanda's like, pissed because she wanted to get him. So we'll come back to Wanda. So when they go to another portal, this is what I said in the beginning, where you get like just bad dialogue, just writers not realizing, contradicting themselves. But when she was like, yeah, first rule to dimension travel, never assume that you know anything, and then begins to assume that she knows everything, which was crazy. But this is one of the most appalling sequences in the movie, because then we get quite literally a walk down memory lane where we have a plot device that's a stepping stone that shows you in HD 4K your memories. Was just wow. I mean, there are 4 million other ways you could have gave us a backstory for this kid, or for that matter, introduced her to Doctor Strange. But wow, that's what they went with. So yeah, yeah. So we get to see that her backstory is her. I think she got sneezed or got stung by a bee, and then accidentally flung her parents into another dimension. And I'm not joking. That's quite literal. I think she got stung by a bee, and her parents got flung into another dimension. Yeah, and she assumes they're dead, but Doctor Strange is like, you don't know that, and of course, this being what it is, Marvel for one, but then Disney, oh, they're alive somewhere out there. And her next Netflix series, is it Netflix? I don't know, whatever. Disney Plus. Her next Disney Plus series will reveal where her parents are. I'm fucking sure of it. But then we get Doctor Strange stepping on said stepping stone. We get a little flashback of him and Rachel McAdams. And then it's just, oh my, I cannot stress enough, like, just the cringiness of the dialogue in this movie, too. Then after that, you get like, oh, did you mess things up with Rachel McAdams in your universe, too? And it's like, oh my God, like, gosh, Doctor Strange is just, God, man, he could have been such a better character. Why? But yeah, so then they go on to meet with what's his name, the other guy from the first one, evil Morbu, or I can't remember, but he captures them. Then the plot thickens from there. Then I could go back to Wanda's storyline from that point. After they had escaped, she uses the Darkhold to like transfer her consciousness into her body in another dimension. Let's call it daywalking, because I think it was called daywalking. And if it sounds stupid, that's because it is. So she transfers her whole consciousness to this body so she can haunt them in a horror-like sequence in this universe now, which commences. And then we get one of the stupidest cameos I think you possibly could have given. I think, honestly, just downright disrespectful. We have Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, Dr. Charles Xavier from X-Men, another lady from Captain. It could have been Captain Marvel. I don't know if it's Captain Marvel from a different universe or another one from her core. But then Black Bolt and Captain Carter, and it's like God, like just like a really cool sequence of cameos, just to have them fucking butchered in seconds by Wanda, which is not like off character because that's typically like canon for Wanda. She's pretty OP. So I mean, it's likely that she could outpower most of them. But I mean, like Franklin Richards is like the smartest guy in the Marvel universe. So I don't know. I'd probably like run. I think, or have like some other contingency plan besides. Oh, please don't be a bad person. It's like they wouldn't take her that lightly either because they would be pretty aware of her powers. But yeah, so she torments them, and then while she's like running wild with the dark hole daywalking and shit, her body's still at Kumatage. She's got like Wong strung up in some like sex torture thing, and then one of the survivors comes up behind Wong, like fucking end zone dives on the book and like stabs it and it burns to pieces when takes her with it, which was a cool visual, I'm not gonna lie, but don't really understand how that works, but I won't question it. But then Wanda comes back and she's like, no, now I can't daywalk to torment them to get my children that don't exist. And then Wong's like, haha, my plan all along. But then she's like, well, you're the Sorcerer Supreme, so you know there's more ways of doing this. And I don't know how she assumed that. I don't know why he would even admit that, but he's like, you're right. And then he's like, I'll never tell you. So, of course, whatever survivors are left, she lifts up in the air, force chokes them, and is like, I'll kill them too. And then we have another plot convenient device where apparently the temple where the dark hole was created has every fucking page of the dark hole on it. So she doesn't even need it. So they go there. Her face is like sculpted into the wall. It was like meant to be. And she uses that to daywalk again. And I don't know if I got those times mixed up. I might have, but I mean, it really doesn't matter as far as the story is concerned. So long story short, I mean, basically, Wanda gets America Chavez back. Then she takes her back to the dimension that they were originally in. Doctor Strange then conveniently finds his version of himself in that dimension that he's stuck in now. And it's like the evil Doctor Strange who conveniently has the Darkhold, which of course he defeats that Doctor Strange, takes the Darkhold, then of course does the same thing Wanda did at first and daywalks into his original universe using the body that died in the beginning of the film. And of course, if it sounds stupid, that's because it is. And he daywalks back as, and this is when you can see Sam Raimi's influence kind of take over the film again. He comes back as like a skeleton, dead creature, fights off Wanda, and then possibly one of the worst scenes in the entire film. And I just, I struggle to wonder how directors could come together and be like, you know what, this is what we're going for. This is a good idea. Let's. I mean, there's millions of dollars that go into these films, and we get the scene where America Chavez realizes her power, which she's been using the whole movie, but she has like her fist grows and she could punch stars into the atmosphere and open up portals. And we have a scene where she looks at Wanda, she's like, uh-huh, and Wanda's like, nuh-uh, and that's supposed to be empowering, maybe. I think that's what they were going for. But, yeah, so she opens up a portal that allows Wanda to see herself in another universe where her kids exist, which quite frankly confuses me a little bit because the kids, like I said several times now, aren't real. But, yeah, then seeing that they're happy and enjoying their lives, she sees the light, as they say, and realizes she's a baddie and stops being a bad person. And, yeah, the tower implodes on Wanda, but, we don't see her die, so of course she's alive. And we'll see her in later films to come. But this is a good time to speak about just thematically where a lot of these things just went wrong. So like I said, Doctor Strange was with McAdams, I think, and she was just really just not used well throughout the movie. But she was with him when he went to go get the Darkhold from the evil Doctor Strange. And at the end of the movie, there's like a scene where he's like, "I'd love you in every dimension" or something like that. And that's like I said in the beginning, where like they tried to set up this theme where it's like a coming of self for Doctor Strange, which they just didn't follow through on, and also didn't make sense really because it doesn't seem like he learned that. Oh yeah, I love her, but I have to move on, and this is my life. Seems like he's still pretty much ready to give it all up and be like, well, fuck it. If you want to make it work, I'll make it work. So that kind of fell flat on its head. Um, Wanda's plot was just crazy. I mean, it was just continuing over from her storyline that was failed within her own separate TV show. And then, secondly, to America Chavez, who was supposed to be like this big plot point in the movie, I don't even think we got a resolution to her storyline throughout the movie or anything. So they're just saving that for a Disney Plus series that nobody wants to see, which, boy, I can't wait for that. That should be terrific. Um, yeah, I should mention there's a post credit scene where Doctor Strange gets like the evil Darkhold third eye from I guess when he used it to daywalk. It's all pretty pitiful if I'm being honest, but yeah, what a shame, what a shame. It's a movie that really reeks of multiple directors, very Last Jedi esque. Um, yeah, give it a fuck all out of 10, maybe a 2. We'll call it a 2 out of 10. Yeah, so moving on. This movie really just don't need notes for. Morbius was Morbius. If you've seen it, I think it pretty much speaks for itself. What can I even say about this film? If you're wondering why I have it after Doctor Strange 2, I think there's a few reasons for that. They're both abominations, but first and foremost, Doctor Strange 2 has a lot more to lose than Morbius does. Being from a once coherent universe and a lot of movies that work in tandem with you, you can't just throw lines away like, oh, your dreams are you waking up in another dimension or something like that. Like, you can't do shit like that. Like, you have to stick to that now, every film you make post that movie. And you also have to think about the films you made prior to it. Like, they don't make sense now. They're whatever. But also, the two things that I said about Doctor Strange 2 that were just done terribly were the way they handled their characters, and then secondly, themes. They had 3 different themes they were going for in the movie. None of them were followed through on. As shitty as Morbius is, I mean, its theme might suck, but it's consistent. I mean, they stick to it, and the characters, though they're terrible, they don't betray their terrible quality. I mean, they're consistently terrible throughout the movie. But without further ado, let's just get into it. I'll be quick with this one. Um, you have a crippled doctor, or a crippled boy, I should say, and he's got like this. It's like muscular dystrophy, but like worse, I guess. And he has a friend with like the same issue. And I want to point this scene. There's like 2 scenes I want to pull out of this movie because none of them are worth it, but this one's funny. So in the beginning of the movie, to show that he's intelligent, they have a scene where they're both in the hospital, and the other boy's like life support line is like failing, and like the machine that keeps him alive, and it's all because like a piece of it, like a I don't know, some piece of the mechanism like popped out, and somehow Morbius comes over as a child, mind you. He's like 10, grabs like a coil from his bed or some shit, jams it in there, and then it works again, and thus his friend is saved, thus sparking their lifelong friendship. But like, there are just so many, like a million other ways you could have gotten that point across that weren't stupid. But yeah, that's what they went with. So yeah, yeah. So I get pretty disappointed when projects stray away from like source material, but for this particular instance, I think the origin story of Morbius maybe could have been tweaked a little bit. So to cure his disease for being a cripple, he sticks bat blood in a syringe and injects it in his spine. And yeah, if that sounds stupid, it's because it is. And shocker, it doesn't work. He becomes a mutilated, deformed bat beast, murders everybody in the room, attacks his friend mortally. Uh, yeah, and then later learns to control his powers. But then there's the side story of his friend that he grew up with that becomes like irritable, you could say, and downright erotic, really. Jealous, like, how come you can use it and I can't? Well, he's like, well, because I came mutilated bat beast and I murder people. Well, that doesn't matter. You're a mutilated bat beast that can walk, which, I mean, I could level with. I mean, if I was going to be one of two types of mutilated bat beast, I think I'd prefer the one that could walk. But yeah, long story short, his friend injects the bad blood into his spine as well, becomes a mutilated bad beast, and also becomes the antagonist of our story. There's really not much more to say about the plot. I mean, there's a couple more funny scenes to point out. One, for me, mainly being the one where they first have like their first like superhero or anti-hero to villain encounter at the subway. Just a combination of like the poor CGI, which looks like it was pulled out of a PlayStation 2 game, the terrible dialogue that was just cheesy as all hell. It was honestly, it's something to behold. I couldn't stop laughing, really. But then there's the scene where he first learns to fly, which is immediately that follows that, which is even funnier, honestly. And there's a scene that Jason pointed out that was hilarious too. I think one of the first things that the villain of the movie does when he gets his powers is like go to the club to hit on chicks, which is like a really strange choice. I thought as a villain, I don't know where your head's at, but who am I to judge? I don't know what super villainy is like, but I feel like that wouldn't be my first move to go beat up chicks' boyfriends and try to get some ass. But hey, who knows? Yeah, the movie kind of carries on. Of course, he defeats his friend in the end, and Morbius 2 is coming. Hopefully not. Hopefully they just realize the error of their ways. But somehow this movie got memed into a second showing in the theaters and bombed again. So I don't know at this point if it could be anything else than have the what I've said it was before. Sony really just doesn't care about making films. They're really just holding characters that they have the rights over Disney. Like, oh, bet you can't do this though. Haha, look at what we're doing to him. So, yeah, don't be surprised if we get more Abominations. And also, this would be a good time to mention that pretty sure Sony offered Disney a second, like another appearance of Spider-Man if they allowed them to use Blade in, like, Morbius 2, which is just crazy. Like, where's your head at? Did you think you're even in a position, a Morbius 2? You guys need to burn the studio down for one. Like, it's just. Well, that being said, for the things that I did say before, that it did hold together better than Doctor Strange 2, we'll give it 2.5 out of 10. Still fucking pitiful. Would not recommend. Unless you want to just have like an ironic laugh with your buds, then yeah, I'd recommend it. But yeah, good lord, those are just. And I have to watch these movies twice. I can't stress that enough. I have to watch these twice to do these reviews. They're bad enough the first time, but oh man. Moving on. And this one hurts. I'll be honest. This one probably hurts the most out of all the ones I'll do, because just of my history and just my love for the franchise, or the way I loved, past tense, the franchise. But Obi-Wan. Oh boy. Where to begin? I guess I'll say before I even get into Obi-Wan, I mean, I didn't have really high hopes going into it. I think I was really just watching it to see Hayden Christensen reprise the role and Ewan McGregor just for the nostalgia factor. I knew the writing was going to be terrible. I mean, they're not capable of much at Disney anymore. And after the project they've released, I mean, why would I be hopeful? But they didn't disappoint. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy and all her genius is just destroying this. But let's get into it. So, episode 1, for the first 15 minutes or so, I mean, it starts out tolerable. I'll say it's all right. You get a bunch of you know flashbacks and Easter eggs and whatnot, but it's not like forced down your throat like it will be later in the show. But at first, it's just like, okay, Obi-Wan's on hard times, Order 66, the Jedi's are on the run. It's just one of those, it's like a somber beginning. But then what really throws this episode off is not only dialogue, which I really just didn't think could get worse from the original trilogy to the prequel trilogy, because if we're being honest here, I mean, George Lucas just wasn't that good of a writer. I mean, I love those movies, but you got away with it in the 70s and 80s, where like things were just naturally kind of cheesier. It stayed the same stagnant sort of writing in the prequel trilogy in the early 2000s, where it stood out a lot more, and it was like, wow, that's really cheesy. Hence a lot of the ratings on those movies, if you go really look into it. But then somehow in the year 2022, going on 2023, it's gotten worse. And I'm not even sure how that's humanly possible. I don't know if they're thinking that's like the theme for Star Wars because George Lucas wasn't that good of a writer. We should just write poorly. I'm not sure. And honestly, if that was the case, if somebody from Disney's team came out and said that, I think I'd go a lot, a lot lighter on it. But yeah, it's pitiful. So I figured, why not show you instead of tell you? So I do have a couple scenes that I have pulled up. This first one is a scene from the beginning where Obi-Wan's on the run, and he finds another Jedi that's also on the run after Order 66. And there's just some terrible dialogue shared about like, oh, the best thing for you to do is just stay hidden, and I'll play it for you to hear. But then the actor that they find is just, oh my good lord, you were once a great Jedi. Like, oh good lord, it's just, I mean, the amount of money that you have on your budget to do this shit. I don't even know how this is possible. And I'll get to, he's not even the worst. I mean, this kid was in the movie or in the show for, very, very minimal amount of time. So, I mean, he's not even the worst damage to it. The worst acting you get is from one of the main antagonists, Reva, which I'll get into because, like, her whole terrible acting is blown into a, like a race war, which is crazy. But it is what it is, I suppose. All right. I'm going to see if I can get this for you guys.
My name is Ben. Come on, please. Please. You have no idea what I've been through. You must leave. You'll draw too much attention. But I have nowhere to go. They're hunting. You have to help. You will now take this. Walk into the middle of the desert and bury it in the ground. Stay hidden. Live a normal life. What about the people that need us? What about the fight? The fight is done.
Oh my god.
What happened? You were once a great Jedi.
This is just bad acting. Oh boy. Oh man. Yeah, man. Oh gosh. Yeah, I think I originally recorded that to send to my little sister just on some like joke shit. It's just god awful. But yeah, there's a scene later in that episode. I think. Well, actually, I should explain this too. That Jedi from that terrible scene, that terrible excerpt I just put, he gets like executed, I should say, later in the show, but in that episode of the show. But hang on, here's the thing. I'm not even sure the noose wasn't even around his neck. They had him like roped up by like his legs and arms. I think they were confused about how murder works. It was very strange. That was just a weird tidbit that I caught, and I feel like I should point out. There was a another weird casting decision they had. The guy from Eternals, I forget his name. Somebody please correct me, or maybe we could correct it in post-editing. It's the Kunaj guy or whatever. He was a comedian, now he's like buff, but he was in the Eternals. as the one like actor dude. But like I don't know, I think this is just a bad like lane for him. I think to like he's a funny guy. Like I like him in like funnier shit. Like I don't know, this is just because he's still like they still cast him as like comedian in this role, and it was just like a really misplaced. I think right after the execution scene, we're going into this dude, cracking jokes and shit. It was very uncomfortable and very weird and just misplaced. And another thing to say about these Star Wars shows in particular, it just this is just Kathleen Kennedy. I think her influence on Star Wars. There's so many people that just look like they don't belong in the universe, like in universe in these episodes. Like the one girl that was like the drug dealer was like Ewan McGregor's daughter. Why does she look like a tween from like 2015, like a punk rock band? Like she's supposed to be in a dystopian Star Wars planet. Like it's super strange. And there was not now that we're on the topic. I mean, there was the one from like I think it was Mandalorian, the one black dude with like the dreads with like the gold beads and shit. It's like, bro, what barber is doing your hair in the Star Wars universe? Like, this doesn't even make sense. But and yeah, the one kid behind the pink girl damn near just had on a hoodie, just had on a hoodie from like the Gap or something. It's incredibly strange. But then, yeah, after that scene, we get introduced to arguably the worst character. I mean, just the worst acting I think I've ever seen. I shouldn't even say the worst character because they haven't written anything of her that we know yet. I mean, which is not good, but that doesn't like. I mean, this is some of the worst acting I think I've ever seen in a Star Wars movie, and that's saying something because there's been a lot of bad acting in Star Wars movies. Like, wow, it stands out. I mean, it's like it's out of place, and that of course is Riva, or AKA the third sister, who I'll just give you her backstory now because it'll make more sense at least. I'm doing them a favor by doing this. I mean, because it's not explained in the show. I think they're working up to it, but at this point it's too late because she's just like her character's ruined. But the backstory is apparently like Darth Vader invaded like her home planet or whatever, and then like she was trained in the ways of the Force, and then like ended up working for the Empire. Very strange that she has like this hard on for fucking Vader in this, is like kind of like a bratty kid trying to get by his side. Very strange how they depicted her in that. She has like no character void from that really. And well, you know what? I'll save that for episode 2. But yeah, she's like one of the Inquisitors, and she's just unhinged to say the least. But she's like chasing Obi-Wan in like a tunnel because of course she finds him, and yeah, the her like lead Inquisitor comes. The whole reason I'm bringing this up and I didn't mention him before is because he's insignificant to the plot because they wrote him that way. Like minus an opening scene, he really does nothing. But she kills him while, all right, mind you, Obi-Wan is hiding from the both of them behind a crate feet away, like literally fucking feet away. And instead of her, thinking like, let's maybe capture this fugitive that we've been after for 10 years now, she's like, no, my personal quarrel with the lead Inquisitor is more important. And she stabs him in the abdomen, and he dies. And then, shocker, Obi-Wan has escaped while she was killing her own partner. It just, if that doesn't spell out stupid, I don't know what does. I mean, at this point, it's just like, who knows? I don't know. I can't, I can't write for you, so, yeah. Well, yeah, that's pretty much episode 1. If I had to give that a rating out of 10, 3, 4, 3.5, probably a 3.5 out of 10. It was pretty embarrassing to say the least. All right, episode 2 of Obi-Wan. Yes, Oh, and actually, let me pause there. And episode 2, it doesn't, shocker, it doesn't get better. Actually, it gets worse because we get more Riva, and I think the less of her we have in the show, the better. And, yeah, it's weird because I think they already announced, like, a spin off show for her. And this is like a reoccurring problem that they're having just at Disney in general. Like, why don't we, instead of having like 12, to 20 projects in the works, work on one that's coherent, that one that runs. And then maybe we could build off of other things. And they just don't get it. They're doing the same thing in the MCU. It's just not good planning. But okay. So to build off of what I was saying about Riva's character not being there, and this all is aside from the actress doing a horrible job, just a god awful job. Like, she just isn't good. And if anybody has seen her good in something else, please, I'm not like, I'll definitely give her props. Like, I'll definitely respect it. Purely speaking, on this show, her acting in Obi-Wan is atrocious. It's bad, but that writing is no better. So let me explain. So there's a scene where Obi-Wan was like, because obviously if you've seen A New Hope, like everybody on the planet has, which I think the writers of Star Wars forget that everybody on the planet has seen A New Hope. But we'll get to that later in the episode. But there's a scene where, of course, Obi-Wan is watching Luke on his place on Tatooine from afar. And there's a place where he's in town, like a market or something. And he's talking to, I forget the guy's name that like raises Luke. It's like something very regular and American, I feel like. I can't remember what it is, though. But that raises Luke, and that's his dad in, like, New Hope and shit. But he's talking to him, and he's like, oh, Luke needs to start his Jedi training. And he's like, no, he's not, I don't want him to be like you guys or don't want him to be in danger. Let him be. He's good where he is, which is all canon that clicks. All of that I'm okay with. Okay. So then there's a scene where the Inquisitors show up, right? Obi-Wan's hiding. And this is, all right, I don't know which one to start with. Bad writing, bad acting, bad writing, bad acting. Let's start with bad writing. Okay, so she walks up into the crowd of maybe, let's say, 40 people that are all in this market square. Obi-Wan nowhere to be found. He's hiding. She walks up in this crowd of people. Out of the goddamn clear blue sky, she just cuts somebody's fucking hand off. Just cuts it off. Just for no reason. Just completely unhinged. She didn't ask questions. She didn't interrogate the person. The person clearly had nothing to offer. There's ways to use intimidation and force and fear to work, which is how, Darth Vader used to do in the original trilogy when movies were good. I mean, you don't just mutilate people and then give me answers. Like, that's not how that works. They're thriving in pain now, bleeding everywhere. It's very hard for them to tell you what they know, if anything. So, and then, all right, and actually, you know what, that was bad writing, but that was a combination of both because she acted that out terribly as well. So, just think anything that I say is bad writing with her, it's going to be conjointed with bad acting. But then there's just this what fucking donkey in the fucking writing room was like, okay, this will be good. Let's do this. She walks out of the crowd of 40 people, almost fucking predictably just knows that Luke's dad is somebody that knows Obi-Wan. Just sticks her fucking lightsaber out. Oh, it must be you. You know something, don't you? How did you inquire that out of this group of people? Like, but you could read minds now? Is that what you're telling me? You could read minds. How can't you read fucking Obi-Wan's? He's feet away from you. It's just. But as I said in the review for episode 1, why tell you when I can show you? So there's a scene following that when Fifth Brother and Jesus Christ. I mean, I know this is canon. I guess their names are like Fifth Brother, Second Sister, or whatever the fuck. But dude, it's just funny that, I don't know, it's just goofy, really. But okay. So she's getting scolded for the way she just acted, like I said. That acting.
You still want Kenobi. But he's gone. And you won't find him. We spent the last 10 years looking for him.
Maybe you've been looking in the wrong places.
What is it you think you will gain by capturing him?
Oh my
No.
god. What?
Be careful, third sister. You go too far.
Oh, wait for it.
Maybe you don't go far enough.
Good fucking googly moogly. You go too far. Maybe you don't go far enough. Wow, just what fucking shithead donkey wrote that? And I wish the episode kind of just concluded with like that pitiful like disgrace of whatever the fuck that was, but it doesn't. The episode doesn't end there. It gets worse. It gets fucking worse. So then we're introduced to fucking Leia Organa, and wow, I mean, if I've ever had any more Easter eggs shoved down my fucking throat, I'd be shitting them up my ass, and I'd be the goddamn Easter Bunny. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like, if there were ever any more throwaway lines to tell us like this is Leia Organa, like, dude, we know. We've all seen A New Hope. Like, everybody in fucking America has seen A New Hope. Like, we get who it is. Every second, just, oh, you're so smart for your age. Oh, you'd make a great leader someday. Oh, you're really wise beyond your years. And just for them to contradict it with their fuck all writing, for her to act like a complete idiot later in the episode. It's just, but, okay, so Reva's terrible acting and all the terrible writing aside, you know, if this isn't tied for first or even beating Reva's scene, you know, inquisiting, if you will, for the worst scene in the episode, it's the scene where Leia's getting chased through the forest. I mean, I almost turned the TV off at this point. Like, she's getting chased by the fucking Three Stooges around a couple trees, like three grown men stumbling over their own feet. Oh, shucks, can't get her. She's like laughing and giggling and skipping and shit. It's like, what? What am I watching? It was, oh boy, it was tough to watch. It was tough to watch. Eventually, Larry, Harry, and Mo, Curly, Mo, whatever. Who cares? You know, the Stooges. They capture her, and then, you know, she gets taken. Then Obi-Wan comes, saves her, breaks her out. And here's where I see there's the contradiction of them giving all these Easter eggs to being the smart girl, which they continue to do after this, which is quite interesting. But she's an idiot. So she's captured on a spaceship of people who want to... She doesn't know if they want to kill her or what with her. She gets rescued by Obi-Wan. And while they're on the run, mind you, from a life or death situation, she decides to interrogate him about whether or not he's actually a Jedi, whether he can prove it or any of this shit. And it's just like, wow, you're supposed to be that smart? I mean, is this the time and place to be questioning anything? Should you just run and then maybe in a safe place be like, oh, do you really know my... Like, she's quite stupid, actually. Strange. Very strange. I mean, this is shown later episodes too. She's actually incredibly stupid. It's just they think that if they say she's smart, that us as viewers, oh, she must be smart because they said it. It's incredibly insulting, really. Yeah, that episode, it was an abomination, truly. Another great cameo, though, I forget the actor's name, but her dad, he acted well, so I'll give him that. I'll give him his props. Call him Mr. Organa. But I'm just like, that's what I'm here for, really, I guess. Call me, call me a hype beast. I'm here just to catch cameos from guys from the prequel trilogy that I love. So that's about it. This episode was arguably worse than the first. So what did I give that? A 3.5? Well, this will get a 2.5. Yeah. Nah, I'm lying. Let's give it a 3. 2.5 would be like Doctor Strange levels. I can't go that far. Give it a 3, just because it is bad. I mean, even like God, like we had this. Me and Jay were having this conversation the other day, where it was like, yo, does bad acting or bad writing, like which one will topple your project more? And that's a real like philosophical debate to be had there. But you know what? Not to be debated. Both you can't succeed. If you have bad writing and bad acting, you're done. You're just screwed. All right, moving on. Episode 3, which was what I will say the best of the 4 that have been out so far. It's not saying anything. It wasn't good. Um, Slight butcher of character with Vader. They did another one of those things where there's a scene where Obi-Wan is feet away and he's hiding, and Vader is murdering random people that have no information, not even using them as leverage to get information, which is very un-Vader like. That just makes you. I hate how like, all right, those are just signs of bad writers. I mean, I can't really explain that enough about how delicate you have to be with characters, especially characters that aren't yours that you're adapting. But doing things like that to show force and to show people that are intimidating in a very intimidating light, it has to be done in an intelligent way. Like that, you're not getting that point across that way. You're making him look stupid and unhinged. Like that doesn't come off as somebody to be feared. Looks as somebody that can be outsmarted. And Vader isn't stupid by any means. Have you guys seen the prequel trilogy or the original trilogy rather? It doesn't seem like it. It's disappointing, but either way, this one probably has the best visuals. Like the fight scene was cool, everything was acceptable, I guess. I mean, there's still a lot of corny shit in the episode. The dialogue was still very bad. I think the minimal amount of Reva in this episode really benefited it. Um, yeah, gosh, there's really just not much good things to say about it. It just wasn't. And I don't know. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys disagree, I mean, I know there's people out there that like it. I mean, I see the comments and shit, but I feel like there's many more that don't, and it's just not good. I mean, this series is something we didn't ask for, we didn't need, and for all of George Lucas's writing faults, he might not have been a great writer, really, but I mean, he was great at world building. I mean, the fantasy world he built within Star Wars is so vast. I mean, the amount of stories you could pull from it is virtually endless, and it's just strange how we keep going back to characters that we've already visited. Just leave them alone. Just make something new. Like, just really speaks to the lack of creativity that we have. It's a shame, really. But this episode, I'd give this episode a solid like 5.5 out of 10. 5.5. If not for the defamation of character with Darth Vader, I like that defamation of character because it is defamation of character. But I'd probably give it even like a 6.5 because visually it was great and there wasn't enough for them to fuck up. I mean, there was actually, truly with dialogue. I hadn't watched it twice, so I really can't tell you if they really created plot holes or not with a lot of the back and forth through Obi-Wan and Anakin. But and even no, let's bring that back down to a 5.5. Now that I'm thinking about a lot of things they said. I am what you made me. Like, he didn't make you any of that. But yeah, I think I just would, because Darth Vader's very cunning, and that's going to be a theme for later when I talk about something else. But it's a very cunning guy. I just don't see it in his predecessing form. But yeah, let's give that a 5.5 out of 10. Now, episode 4. Let us come back. Oh boy, oh golly, and we're right back to mediocrity, really. I don't have much to say. At the end, I should have said in the review before for episode 3, at the end of episode 3, Reva does make it appear that she captures Leia because Leia is such a genius, right? She's so smart, but she's caught again. And she's like, "Oh yeah, here's a good idea." And this is where this episode really just I was tuned out from here. And I don't, you know what? I probably won't even get into much more of this episode. I'm just tell you where it starts out. She's interrogating a 10-year-old, screaming, threatening violence. Just remember when I said her looking off the wall and unhinged doesn't help her character at all when you haven't written a character? Sure, if her character was to be a stupid idiot, that would be great. But you know that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to make her seem like, and they're gonna have a throwaway episode. I guarantee fucking to you, with like, oh, look at her tragic backstory. This is Reva, but you've already ruined that by making her an unhinged idiot. Like, oh, bad writing, and that's without being toppled by her bad acting. It's just do yourselves a favor every once in a while. It's so pitiful. But she's literally screaming at a 10-year-old like, "Where is he? Tell me." She's like, I don't know. I'm 10." And it's just, oh God. Man, it's just a shit show. And of course she's saved again. And I'm beginning to think that's what this episode, or actually I don't think she gets saved in this episode. Who knows? But I'm beginning to think that's just what this show's going to be. Just a sequence of Leia being captured and saved and him talking to Vader with lines that include enough Easter eggs to fill fucking a clown car's baskets. I don't know. I don't know. And if you're wondering why, I'm just dead inside a little bit when it comes to Star Wars. There's nothing there, boys and girls. There's nothing there. It's dead. The MCU's on their way down the same thing. Disney is just they keep milking the cash cow till she's all dried her. But yeah, this episode maybe back to a 4 out of 10. It wasn't good. All right, that's enough Star Wars. I mean, jeez. And I'm sorry I didn't have any notes from those other episodes, but or any notes rather. I mean, any videos from those other episodes. But dude, I mean, sometimes I'm just like watching something, I'm just laughing my fucking ass off, dude. I'm just like, there's no way you got in the studio, you were like, yeah, this is it. And then even as actors, like, at what point don't you just put your foot down? Like, I'm not reading this. Like, I'm not saying this is cap. Like, I'm not gonna say this, but you know, what do I know? All right. Oh boy. So let me get into the last of the reviews that I have. And you know what? It's one that I do enjoy. I consider The Boys guilty pleasure because The Boys, like, it heavily deviates from its source material, but I don't hate it. You know, I'm not like you know, I'm not torn with the decisions they made. I'm confused by some, but I'm not torn by it. But let's get into it. Season 3, Episode 1 of The Boys. So a year has passed since the events of Season 2, and Butcher, Frenchie, and, well, I should just, you know, everybody's probably waiting to hear this part. The episode starts off by the equivalent of, like, Ant-Man in the universe, like, jumping through the dick hole of, like, another person and, like, tapping the walls of, like, the dude's urethra, I think. So yeah, you know, it's good to see that they kept like the wildness factor of the show still in there. But yeah, so we get to see that like Butcher, Frenchie, and Kimiko are still together, and they're still working and doing like, you know, their shit, but they're working for the government now, sort of, not for the government, but following government rules. And by that I mean Butcher isn't killing, which is looking to be like, you know, the big like point of the episode where like he's torn at odds, which he should be because that's not him. But yeah, so yeah, Huey obviously at the end of season 2 had left and got that government job working for Vicky, who was the girl who had the power to blow people up. She blew up like the better version of we'll just call it Homelander's mommy from season 1 instead of Homelander's daddy from season 2 and 3, which I'll get into why. Giancarlo Esposito is great, but the character's not written as well as it should be. But we'll get into it. But yeah, Huey's been working at that job and pretty much is at a point where he thinks he's doing the right thing, like the same sort of job, right? Keeping superheroes and everything in check, but he's doing it the right way, or so he thinks. But he'll soon come to find, big surprise, there is no like real right way. It's all pretty much just your perspective, what side you're on. But Starlight is offered the position of co-captain based on the events of season 2 with Homelander, obviously dating a Nazi and that whole thing being public. It's kind of just like, all right, his ratings are down, so they want to, like, how the same way season 1 and 2 have pretty much played out. They want to get the ratings back up in the public's eye, so they're going to bring up a new star and try to, like, push them as the front man. So Starlight's kind of, like, edging Homelander out, and this is the plot device to really show Homelander, like, losing his mind, which is something that truly doesn't make sense, because he really should have lost it season 1 finale, I think. I mean, I think at this point, it's just kind of a stagnant character, but we'll get into that later. We find out that Vicky Newman is actually Nadia. Shocker that she's not who she says he is. They've been alluding to that. But she was actually, we'll get into where she came from the last episode, but we see her use her powers in a way that isn't so PC, so to speak. She ends up killing this guy, Tony, that came looking for her, and Huey happened to be following her, sees that, and of course has like a crisis of conscience and questions his faith within his job at the government, and that ends up ultimately turning back to the boys in episode 2. So, and then actually this episode ends with, we actually see that Stormfront is alive, but in critical condition, which is a funny scene. We could still see Homelander just being the, Homelander that we know and love. He uses her limp hand to get a handy while he's in the hospital room with her. Queen Maeve gives the boys a couple doses of temporary Compound V, which gives you the powers of a superhero for 24 hours, which is straight canon from the comic books. I love this factor, and it also, obviously, if you couldn't infer this from just hearing that, makes for great content, because if you're going to fight superheroes, you might as well have some fucking superpowers doing it. But, yeah, in the next few episodes, it does get quite interesting. But what I'll say about this episode, it was pretty good. For a first, there's a few things there, character-wise, that I have issues with. Only reason I'm not bringing them up in this particular part of the review is because later on, when I'm done with all 4 episodes that are out right now, I'll talk about the flaws, I think, as a whole. It'll be easier. But for this episode, I think I might have enjoyed this one the most out of all 4. But I'll give Season 3, Episode 1 a 7 out of 10. I think that was a fair judgment for that one. Moving on. Let's get on to Season 3, Episode 2. Jeez. So. Oh, and also, I should have mentioned from Season 3, Episode 1. When Queen Maeve gave them the Compound V, she mentioned that Soldier Boy, an old superhero, which is a huge change from the comic books. Soldier Boy was current superhero trying to get into the 7, but she mentioned that he was killed by a rumored to be killed by a certain weapon, and this becomes the whole plot of this season, which is another issue I have with the season because it doesn't click, but I'll get into that later. But if this weapon could exist, now their purpose is to try to find it, because that might be their only contingency plan to kill Homelander. Which, I mean, at this point, it's, okay. But, so yeah, they go after Soldier Boy. So the first thing they do is they go after people associated with him, and some of the people that were associated with him back in the day were his sidekick and his teammate that was like also his like girlfriend. So the sidekick Butcher goes after, and at first he questions him in typical Butcher fashion, brash, and interestingly enough, for some reason, he didn't take the compound V before his initial interrogation with this guy, which is very unbutcher like. I guess the one thing they could say about it in the show, I guess, is we didn't really know the side effects of it, so it was a dangerous move. He wanted to really have a good reason to use it. I get that because I guess in the comic books, I want to say it was the government that gave it to him, not Queen. I know it wasn't Queen Maeve. I think it was the government that gave it to him, so that makes a lot more. You could trust it a little bit more, I guess. But I don't know. That just seems really dangerous and stupid, and that's kind of a theme for his character that's like not so great. Like he's a very smart, cunning character that kind of comes off dull um, throughout the course of the last two seasons, which is not characteristic of him. But yeah, so the first time he goes, he doesn't have the injection of the temporary V. Of course, he almost dies. He gets shot, like not like mortally or like fatally wounded, but he gets shot. Then later in the episode, he comes back with the temporary compound V, fucking completely obliterates this guy, gets information that he needs out of him, and then murders him. Just decides that like fuck it, I'm not following the government's rules, which is good for his character. At least have him be Butcher. If we're gonna do Butcher, have him be Butcher. Kimiko and Frenchie went after the girl that used to date Soldier Boy, and like she was like a performer. Seemed like she wasn't harming anybody. I don't know why they just kind of attacked her, which is really weird. Now that I'm thinking about it out loud for their characters, for where they're trying to go with their characters, like they think Butcher is going too far. When so the fuck are they? I mean, like there was no need to even interrogate her in that way. At least it didn't seem like it. They kind of just attacked her, and like she escaped and then ran, and it accidentally killed somebody while trying to defend herself. But they were clearly the aggressors in that situation. So I'll get to that later, though. Once I get to episode 4, there's gonna be so many things I want to talk about, just character wise. But I'll just point them out as I go a little bit. So yeah, they went after her. They didn't really get much out of her, but with the information Butcher got from Soldier Boy's sidekick, I think his name was like Gun Guy or Bullet Guy or something like that, some corny, Garth Ennis style. But he told him that Mallory was like the CIA agent was like personally overseeing some mission that happened on. And with Butcher having such a close relationship with Mallory, he's like, okay, let's go there, and we'll get the rest of the information we need. Okay. There's like a weird like thing to be said about Butcher Butcher's like demeanor right now, and I think it has to do. I didn't mention the fact that kid that they kept in this show is alive, which could be used as a good plot device. But right now, it's just very confusing for his character to know like what they're trying to do with it. Because right now, who knows? Obviously, I think their endpoint, I'll spoil. I think their endpoint goal is for them to have Butcher just, completely unhinged to the point where he's even going to kill the kid. Which, honestly, I'd probably enjoy more, is more on par with his character. I mean, his whole life's purpose is to kill every suit alive. So, the only reason I could see them having that kid survive in this show is to have him as a plot device to push Butcher over the edge and just show that he's unhinged. But right now, they're just not staying true enough to his character to lead up to that point for that to feel good and rewarding when it happens, if that makes sense. But if not, trust me, I'll explain later. This was the episode really to show Homelander losing it because you have this. I think this was the episode where Stormfront commits suicide, I believe, and then it's really just like this scene where Homelander was like supposed to be doing this PR stunt, and I say PR stunt because obviously it's Homelander. He's not really doesn't really care about saving anybody. So he's up on a roof trying to talk this young girl off of jumping to her death, and he sees on a jumbotron behind him that Stormfront committed suicide, and that's all tying into the first episode where her only reason like for hanging on to life was pretty much because she wanted Homelander to become this the leader of like this the Aryan race, like Brotherhood or whatever, and her coming to the realization of Homelander's true narcissism. I mean, Homelander doesn't care about that. He's not racist per se. He's evil. I mean, he only cares about Homelander. I mean, there's nothing else more to it than that. She realizing she has no shot with her body being depleted, she bites off her own tongue, commits suicide. But Homelander actually being the lonely psychopath that he is, he kind of gets a little bit triggered by that and then tells the girl instead of to save her for the PR stunt to jump off, she jumps off and dies. And that's pretty much, I think, just there to show you that he's lost it now. But like I said in the review for episode 1, I mean, he's kind of already been at that point. I mean, there's really nothing keeping him in check. All right, so the one thing I'll say is the two people, Giancarlo Esposito, we'll call him Gus Fring for this because I forget his name in the show, and Homelander's mommy from season 1 are the same person in the book. It's Atwell in the book, or Atwater. I think it's Atwell in the book. That there's one person that has like a psychological control over Homelander, and it's written well in the book to the point where even though there is a contingency, which I'll speak about later in Black Noir, but they don't need it because Atwell has this psychological hold over Homelander, where it's like he knows he can always keep him in check. There's even a point where the climax of the book, fucking Homelander's ready to just go kill him because he's already like killed the president and like killed like so many people on the planet. He's just ready to go murder him and have like the last, notch on his belt, so to speak. And the guy just is not scared at all and just like, oh yeah, do it. Actually, you know what? I did screenshot this for this particular moment, just to show you the difference between psychological. And if I could show it in a picture, we'll see if we can get that to happen. But I'll just read you what he says to him during the scene. And this is, mind you, this is like a climax of the book where Homelander is like completely lost it. Like he not only killed the president, I think he like fucks the president's like corpse or like skull. And then we have like, or this might be actually slightly before that. I'm not sure. Haven't read the book in a while. But when he comes to kill Atwell, he's just like menacingly staring at him like outside his window floating. And he's just like, oh, you're here. And like, he's got his eyes glowing red and shit. And Atwell is just like, oh, these windows don't open. You'll have to smash your way in or laser vision or something. And then Homelander's just looking confused, like, this guy's not scared of me. He's not frightened, anything. He's like, oh, try to do it quietly. I'm having the worst headache of my life, just completely putting off the fact that Homelander's covered in blood there to kill him. And actually, I think, to be honest, I think that's right after Homelander kills, spoiler, Queen Maeve. But it's not a spoiler. I don't know what they're going to do with the show. So it's a spoiler for the book if you ever plan on reading that. But don't get me wrong. With Giancarlo Esposito's character, they did try to like throw lines in of like this like psychological control. But at the end of the day, what it amounted to was just nah, 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 nah. You're not the headline of Voight. Voight's really about us and super serum. If you kill me, another guy will come. And what is saying that should never have stopped Homelander from killing you. I mean, yeah, you're right. Maybe another one will, but maybe he'll be more obedient. Like, he's done nothing to really keep Homelander in check at a psychological level. I think even though they changed that well for the first season, the mom character girl should have been kept in. She shouldn't have been killed off. She had the only thing keeping him sane, really, or not sane, but just in line, I think, was that character. I think you could have used her in so many more ways as opposed to adding another one that didn't work, that kind of fell a little flat. But, for episode 2, I think I'd probably go with 7. 7 I think is fair. I think 7's a fair one. And then from there it kind of went down a little bit. Episode 3 might have been like my least favorite so far this season. Um, Starts off good, but it goes pretty downhill fast. So the boys get back together. Huey obviously post episode 2 or episode 1 was having like that crisis of conscience with seeing his new boss, who we thought was doing things the right way, murder Tony in the middle of the street with her eye popping thing or head popping thing, and he's just like, all right, so if everybody's just as crazy as Butcher, why not be with Butcher, right? So he's back, and at least he can add some sort of like level of conscience to that team. And so they go to visit Mallory based off the tip that they got from Soldier Boy, or Soldier Boy's sidekick about Soldier Boy. And then they find out like Mallory was on this team with them for some military mission. And I guess the scene is to show how unhinged like the superheroes could be in that kind of setting, how dangerous it could be in a military setting. But you get to flashback with the Payback, I think their old team was called, and it's that girl I spoke of, who was Soldier Boy's love interest, Soldier Boy, his sidekick that Butcher murdered, and Black Noir. And there might be another one in there, but it doesn't really matter for the story. Now, here's just abomination number 1. Okay, so they unmask Black Noir in this episode, which is, I mean, incredible. I mean, to be honest, I'm not even sure why. I mean, I think they kind of like half unmasked him in a previous episode, and he wasn't a Homelander, which was disappointing because, spoiler, Black Noir is a clone of Homelander, which is Vought's contingency plan to Homelander becoming unhinged. Yes, because that's what good writing is. Of course, this $1 billion company with indestructible, baby-minded, egotistical psychopath would have a contingency plan. Of course they would. They'd have several. But in this show, it doesn't seem like they have much of anything. They're kind of just like, na you won't do it until he does it. And that's not really believable. But they unmask Black Noir, and he's just a black dude. Not that that sounded wrong, but no, it's just like there's no significance to that. I don't know. I don't know. That's a weird. Like, wouldn't that have been cool if like he takes off the mask and it's fucking Homelander? Like, wouldn't you rather have seen that? I don't know. That was very disappointing for me. They can still fix it, I guess, in writing. It can still be fixed, I guess, because this was a flashback. This isn't present day. So all can be righted. But, yeah, it was pretty, yeah, that one kind of, yeah. There's a scene with the Deep having, like, weird sex while staring at a starfish, I think, or an octopus. I don't know. The Deep scenes are kind of, I'm getting tired of them, if I'm being honest. He is funny in the show, but at this point, it's just kind of getting a little too jokey for me with his character. Kind of could have been written off at this point, much like another character I'm going to talk about in 1 second. Butcher is also experiencing side effects from using that Compound V, which I don't know if they wanted to paint him as severe, but they didn't seem too bad. I mean, he puked a little bit, and then he was good to go. But also, another character that probably should have been written off before is A-Train. And that is because A-Train's character has now become regressive. And by that I mean, he went from being the superficial jockey dude in the beginning, which is canon to his character, to then helping them, Huey, and by them I mean Huey and Starlight at one point in season 2, just to regress again to become a shallow fuck. And then they're throwing in this subplot with him being like, wanting to fight like this one superhero who's like, being very prejudiced towards black communities, which is a cool story, but you have to be like committed to it. You can't just throw that in as a subplot and then. And I brought this up to Jason when I was talking to him about this the other day. If you've ever seen The Many Saints of Newark, which although other than this episode, I did enjoy The Many Saints of Newark, that was the biggest flaw with that movie. It was too two plots. It's kind of a theme with these reviews I've been doing today. It was two plots that weren't cohesive. They could have been, but they didn't write them cohesively. Instead of feeling like you had these two plots, beautifully intertwined, it felt as if you almost had two separate movies being played, in tandem, and it didn't work. With him, it's like this is just feels forced almost, like it doesn't belong in there. His character doesn't feel like it belongs in the show anymore. I mean, I think there's more characters, i.e., Butcher, Kimiko, Huey. Well, Huey actually did do a good job of. I shouldn't say that. Starlight for sure, because she's not. Nor is she. She's not a bad character. Starlight is very stagnant, as she had her like arc. You can say, in the beginning of the first season, and she hasn't changed at all. That's just her character. So there's a lot more depth you could be putting into the characters like that than characters that aren't pushing the plot in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, and I shouldn't have spoke so soon though, because they did give like backstory to like Frenchie's character, and okay, this could just be my memory not serving correctly. Lil Nina is a character from the comic books. Lil Nina is a sex crazed like fetish freak in the comic books as well. Like I remember specifically, there's like a scene like she's on a plane with like a vibrator while she's like on the phone and like talking to people and shit. Like they make sure to make that a point in the fucking comic book, but I don't remember Frenchie being a sex slave in the comic book. Like I don't know. There's like this weird like I don't know. Like I said, it's been a few years since I've read it. I might have to gloss back, go online, see if I can get a copy and read that. But yeah, that was a really weird touch there. I don't feel like that was necessary. And then, for one, obviously, Frenchie's storylines are, I don't know. You probably could have went a few ways with that. Like, I wish they kind of would have just stuck with sort of like girl on the run or girl boy on the run sort of thing, as opposed to now Butcher wanting to go meet with Little Nina. But I digress. He's not the worst, as far as the characters go in the show. I just thought, like, it's a very weird touch. Weird touch. I just feel like that was just outlandish for the sake of being outlandish, not outlandish with a purpose. But, yeah, also, I should speak about the fact that Butcher, like, after the talk with Valerie, kind of, like, shoves, or, like, is mean to his surrogate son, I should say, that isn't his son, but in this show at least. But I guess it's meant to show that like through Huey, like he does this, like, oh no, I need him away from me because he's never going to be safe with somebody like me around, type of thing. But also the double tangent the double tandem that I said with earlier, where Butcher's Butcher, so they're going to use the kid he'll actually probably kill the kid later, which I hope they do. They should do, because that's on key with his character. He doesn't like soups, and that's not his son. But, I don't know. I just feel like the kid could be worked out well. It could be, but I feel like signs, if I have like one of those magic 8 balls, signs point to no. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I really want to get into in this episode. Not really. That was probably my least favorite of this season so far. I'd probably give that like 5 maybe. 5 is generous too. With that Black Noir shit that they pulled in that episode, very very disappointed in it. And let's move on to the most current. Boys season 3 episode 4, and from this episode, like I said, there's more or less things I just wanted to talk about. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, so, and that drink was needed. There's more things I just wanted to talk about. So let's talk about it. I guess I talked about. I should talk. The episode starts off with Gus Fring, or Giancarlo Esposito's character, deciding to go after Homelander for a speech he gave the episode prior. The speech was like pretty much Homelander just being like, or that could have been 2 episodes. I don't remember. Not really important, but it's Homelander unhinged, so to speak, when really Homelander should have been unhinged. But he goes on to, tell Nadia that she needs to go on TV and reprimand Homelander so he knows who's in check. And like this is their way of kind of showing us that psychological control I spoke about in the reviews prior. But it's not there because like, okay, let's say Nadia doesn't betray you. She gets on the stand, she reprimands Homelander. What does that do? He could still kill the both of you, and nothing changes. Um, and then, worst case scenario, the public doesn't like him, and he really goes crazy and kills all of you. So I don't see where his power is. And I had this issue with the last season. It just didn't stand out as much because the last season you felt like was leading just straight up into Homelander psychotic just rage, which I was cool with. And then when I started seeing trailers come out for this season and he's with the Seven and I'm like, wow, how many seasons do you think you're going to have of this shit? Like this dude's like clearly lost his mind already. Yeah, just his whole character is not written well enough in this show to really depict somebody who has this psychological hold on the strongest being in their universe. Like, he doesn't seem to have it. He's just poking fun at him and hoping that he doesn't stir the pot too much. And it's pretty interesting to see that. So I'm surprised he's even survived this long, to be honest. I think maybe they've written him off or he'll get killed off, but what effect will it have? Because he has no hold on him. Killing off Homelander Mommy in season 1 was a big mistake, I think. Or not making them all the same person. Could have been like an Atwell. Could have just had Giancarlo Esposito been like an Atwell-esque character the whole time, like Homelander daddy, and just cater to the daddy issues that he has and shit. But, okay. So we know, why not just get into Homelander right now then too? Because that'll just correspond with what I was just talking about. Homelander is not building up to losing his mind, right? He's already lost his mind. We have saw it he was jacking off on the fucking top of a building when last season ended. I mean, at this point, what are we talking about? Like, he's a psychopath. Like, he's lost his mind. Like, he's been murdering random people, like, frivolously at this point. He was dating a Nazi in public. He's lost his mind at this point. Not sure why. So what they're doing when they do this to just build it up and to keep the seasons going and to keep building up, they're sacrificing his character. His character is becoming stagnant. He's not developing anymore. So he's in this lull, and it's not being, cooperated with any good, like acting or not acting, sorry, writing for Giancarlo's character because he has no hold over him. So not only is he stagnant, there's nothing even to remotely look like it's keeping him in check because Giancarlo has nothing on him or to hold him with. And the comic books, alongside with having the contingency of Black Noir being a clone of Homelander designed specifically to kill Homelander if he got out of line, you had obviously Homelander being blackmailed throughout the whole story with those photos of him like eating a baby and fucking like a whole bunch of other random shit. Like the blackmail to keep him in check that could be shown to the public that would help him lose. Like the build up to the story, he loses his mind when he thinks the photos are leaked. And then he's like, well, I have nothing to live for anymore or to protect anymore. So why don't I just go crazy? Now I don't even know what that point is going to be for him now. Like, what does he have to do to not care about people, loving him anymore at this point? His character is incredibly, incredibly stagnant. The acting for Homelander, tremendous. The acting for Giancarlo Esposito, the acting in this show, period, is tremendous. So none of my critiques are going to be about acting. They're purely going to be about character writing, and it's not good. So there were some scenes in the previous episodes that I purposely left out to bring them up here so I could explain why they don't really click. They're trying to show a divide between the boys, and the divide being Kimiko and Frenchie being like sort of like Huey was, where like Homelander's unhinged, or Homelander, Butcher's unhinged. He's crazy. he's lost his ways. He's out of control now, which he's always been. Not so much in the show, but that's his character. But so are they. Like I told you, like when they had their interrogation of Soldier Boy's past girlfriend, they were completely unhinged and just like, out of control during that situation. That girl didn't do anything. They just started attacking her. But I digress. For Butcher, they're showing scenes of him being like, one scene in particular where he was just like telling Kimiko and Frenchie that he owns them basically and that they do what he says when he says it. And it's like, Butcher would never do that. Like, not to say that he's not an evil fuck, because he is an evil fuck. Like, he's a one-track minded dude. Like, I think, well, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Spoilers some more. In the book, he ends up killing all the members of the boys. He's the spoiler, and they could still go that way in the show. He's a one-track minded dude, but he's not stupid. And this has been a theme with the reviews I've been doing today. You cannot make a character stupid to push a plot forward. You just can't do it. You can't do it. The defamation of character there will forever hurt the character. And they're making him stupid. Like, Butcher is very smart and very cunning. So, I'm not saying that he would care so much to Frenchie and Kimiko's feelings that they were, like, and he doesn't, which is in the book. Like, there's points in the book where they're like, yo, you're out of control. He doesn't care, but what he does is he manipulates their feelings to use them. Sort of like they showed with him and Huey, why that was some of the good stuff from seasons 1. Some of season 2, that's the good stuff there when he's manipulated because that's his character. He's a smart guy. He's a cunning dude. He's not stupid. He wouldn't alienate the only people that he has to help him carry out his plan. I mean, that the writing there is just, it isn't good. I mean, there's no other way to really put that. I can't. I don't know. I don't know. That to me is just a weird character choice. I spoke about the whole thing with A-Train's subplot. Trying to get back on. I think his subplot isn't poorly written. It's not. It's misplaced. I feel his character. I think being in the show, I think he should have been killed off after season 2, when you had like sort of like the arc there where he was seeing the light. If he got killed helping Starlight and Huey, that'd be almost a full redemption arc. But yeah, now he's regressing as a character. He ends up turning them in to Homelander for the mutiny, and then Supersonic gets his head blown off. And I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It just seems like a waste of writing from prior seasons. I don't know why you would do that. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other characters like that in particular that I don't know that I have an issue with. I think the best developed character in the show so far, probably Kimiko. I think is the best developed so far, and Huey. Huey obviously has been developed well. I think everything with Huey makes sense. So now that I got that out of the way, let me just get into a quick synopsis of episode 4. They find where Soldier Boy is being kept. He wasn't actually killed. Or actually, yeah, which should throw a monkey wrench in the plot, if you remember from the review of episode 1, which was, the whole point of this season is to go find this machine or weapon that killed Soldier Boy. Well, he's alive, so doesn't that throw that out the window? So doesn't that make everything you've said, like Huey telling his girlfriend that it's all right to be this close to Homelander, who's a fucking, a murder-hungry psychopath, because this is our plan and it's now shot to shit? Weird. The plot was dumb to begin with, but where are we going? But then they get like ambushed by some government people, and we see that not only is Butcher once again on the super compound V serum, but also Huey took it, and Huey like punches right through a guy's stomach and kills him. And that's cool because that's canon too for the comic book. Huey would want to do that, but Huey's motivations are a little bit different, actually. So actually, Kimiko's probably the best written. Huey's motivations are a little bit different because they're trying to show him with that whole thing of seeing Nadia, like, in that light of her killing somebody as a soup, like him turning to the light of soup. What they should do is just like, well, I don't want to spoil that part actually because I want to see. Another reason I'm not, I don't give a fuck about spoiling anything. The only reason I'm not spoiling this about something that happens between him and Butcher that includes Starlight is I want to see if they do it because it would make more sense to his character, and if they do that, then I'll kind of understand maybe a descent into madness a little bit more. Right now, it's a little foggy for him. I'm not sure why he would want to punch Soups to death. Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, so then they find Superboy. He was being preserved. He comes out, and he's clearly been enhanced. Like, he has, like, this abdomen shooter, which is very reminiscent of the dude from My Hero Academia. That's all I can think of. The belt shooter dude. But, it's like, oh, I can shoot rays out of my tummy. But, yeah, so that's kind of where this episode was. I kind of used this episode review to, like, really rant on, like, some of the things overarching from the first four together. But, yeah, so the reason I'm bringing these up now is, if you could not tell from some of the things I spoke about earlier, some of the reviews I had earlier in this video. Right now, it isn't catastrophic yet for the boys. These character flaws, they're not catastrophic yet. They aren't. But this is the time, because they're already confirmed for season 4, and they're already halfway through season 3. This is the time you have to nip that shit in the fucking bud. Like, it has to be nipped in the bud now, because you let this roll on into another season, you're destroying characters, like borderline destroying characters. Like, the only reason Homelander is not destroyed is because he's stagnant. He hasn't regressed. Like, A-Train is destroyed at this point in my mind. Like, he's regressed. He hasn't stayed the same. He's regressed back into the character he was season 1. You never want to regress. Everything, you always want to think an arc. It's okay to stay the same, but it's not good to go a downward slope. That's just bad for any character development ever, and since the history of character development. So, yeah, I think this episode as a whole, I think I give maybe like a 6 out of 10. Nothing spectacular, but definitely not the worst I had on this list today. But yeah, like I said, the unexpected. You never know, guys, really. Yeah, it's been quite the reviews. I'm trying to think if there's anything I want to throw in. The one thing I will say is we'll be back next week, full capacity with the podcast for sure. And yeah, man. Hopefully, I think I got a guest coming on next week. I'd say who, but I want to wait till we see they show up. But yeah, we got a lot planned for this next season, so I'm looking forward to it. And we'll catch you on the next one.
I cannot lie. You other brothers can't deny. And when a girl walks in with an itty bitty waist and a round thing in your face, you get sprung. Wanna pull up tough, cause you notice that butt was stuffed. Deep in the jeans she's wearing. I'm hooked and I can't stop staring. Oh baby, I wanna get with ya and take your picture. My homeboy tried to warn me, but that butt you got makes. Ooh, rumpa smooth skin. You say you want